In this video, we will review Copeland's method. Similar to other methods, we will be using a preference schedule, and then we're going to look at head-to-head matchups. Notice it says each pair of candidates is compared. So you're going to compare just two at a time. The more preferred candidate in the head-to-head matchup is going to be given 1 point. If there is a tie, you're going to get a half point. That means if you lose, you get 0. That's probably obvious, but I'll go ahead and state that there. After you make all pairwise comparisons, and that means you compare every candidate versus every other candidate, all right, head-to-head, similar to Condorcet. The candidate with the most points will be the winner. They'll be declared the Copeland's winner. We're going back to this same preference schedule we've looked at in the other videos. We're just going to look at this method. Now, you may recall from before that when we have multiple candidates head-to-head, it can be somewhat challenging to keep track of who has played who. So the way that I suggested you do that is you make a little drawing. Maybe in this case, there's four candidates. We're going to put 4 dots, A and B and C and D. And then you can connect these dots. Every dot must be connected with every other dot with little lines, and that'll be a head-to-head matchup. For example, A goes to B is a matchup. We're going to do A versus B as one of our matchups. And we're going to do A versus C, a matchup. Okay, we're going to do A versus D as a matchup. We're also going to do B versus C and D versus C. And then lastly, I have B versus D. Now, what we're going to do is figure out who is the winner in every head-to-head matchup, and then we're going to assign points. So I'll do that maybe off to the right over here. We'll keep track on this right side of this line here. We're going to give points to the 4 candidates, A, B, C, and D. Remember, 1 point if you win, a half point if there's a tie. So let's first look at A versus B. Now, what you're going to do is take a look just at these votes right here at the top, right? 14, 10, 8, 4, 1. And you're going to assign those points to either A or B in the first matchup or any matchup. So looking at A versus B, who's at the top in the column of 14? Well, A, so they get those 14 votes. And the next column, who is at the top? Well, C is at the top, but who is the top, whether A or B? So we're kind of ignoring C and D right now. We're only focusing on A and B. So who is above A or B? And you can see that B is ahead of A in that column. So they get the 10 votes. And then kind of proceeding along. In the next column, the 8 votes goes to B. And the next column, the 4 votes goes to B. And in the last column, the 1 vote goes to B. If you look at the grand total, you can see A only has 14 and B has, well, much more than 14. Let's see, what is that? 12, 13, 23. So we declare B the winner of that matchup. That means that B over here on the scorecard gets 1 point. And then we're going to just continue along like that. I'll go ahead and do one more, maybe 2 more, and then I'll pause the video and have you work on a few of those. Let's look at A versus C. So A gets the 14, C gets the 10, C's at the top. C gets the 8 because they're above A. C gets the 4, and then C gets the 1. And you can see that C is the winner here of that matchup. So C gets 1 point. Let's go ahead and do one more, A versus D. So A gets the 14 votes in the first column. In the second column, D is above A, so D gets the 10, and then D gets the 8, D gets the 4, and D gets the 1. Now, you can notice that A is at the bottom of every single one of the columns except the first one. So A seemingly never wins here. Well, A never does win. So at this point, we're pretty convinced that A is not our Copeland's winner, but B, C, and D all have 1 point each. I'm going to pause the video and let you figure out the point values for B versus C, D versus C, and B versus D. All right. And then you can assign the points, and we can figure out who our winner is by figuring out which one of these 4 candidates at the end of all the matchups has the most points.